Good morning, everyone, and how are you on this Wednesday morning, the 29th day of June, 2022? It's a great day that the Lord has made. Yesterday, Carol and I celebrated our 19th wedding anniversary and went out to dinner to a very nice place here in Lafayette, Georgia. If you're ever in the Lafayette, Georgia area, or if you live in this area, you just need to check out the station house. The food is just awesome, to say the least. Awesome food. And we left stuffed. But anyway, we had a great evening together. Heard from my buddy Harold White last night, my brother from another mother. We've been friends since, oh my goodness, we've been friends almost 40 years, most of our lifetimes. And he was a college student at Lamar University when we first met after I moved to Texas. And we've been friends and business partners and ministry partners ever since, and worked together and shared lives together. I was the presiding minister at his mother's funeral. It was an interesting thing. I was sitting in the living room talking with his mother a few months before she passed away, and she had asked me to come over and said, "I want you to do my funeral." I said, "Okay." So we talked, and she began to tell me a little about her life. And Harold is sitting there listening, and she began to tell me about one thing. He said, "Mom, I never knew that." She said, "You never ask." So, she was a military veteran. He never knew that. She was a veteran of World War II. She had been, you remember the story about the women who flew the airplanes from the factories to the front? Well, she was one of those. Evelyn White was one of those. And when I conducted her funeral, when she passed away several months later, I had the honor of conducting a full military honors funeral, and at the grave site as well. And boy, the things that you learn from people, and some of the information I learned from her that day, some of the personal stories, will find their way into one of my books, I'm sure, because that's how you find, that's how little bits and pieces of reality end up in novels. If you want to know how it is to be an attorney, read John Gresham's novels, because I'll just say that his novels are real, buddy. His novels are real. Anyway, and that's the way I want mine to be. And I believe they are. If you would like to get copies of my books, I will tell you this, that the price of books is fixing to go up because of the cost of printing. Everything, as we know, has gone up, and I hate to do it, but later this year I'm going to have to increase the price on all the books because because the cost of printing. But if you would like to get all four of my books, my book, Preparing to Make War, a book on spiritual warfare from a military perspective, and all three of my novels of Friends and Family, Finding Rhonda, and Ashes in the Rose Garden. You can get all four of those books for $50 plus $10 shipping. That's $60. Send your request to Rick Tallent, P.O. Box 223, Lafayette, Georgia, and I will get it out to you. Regina's asking a question. What's the book Finding Rhonda? Well, let me just go ahead and tell you a little bit about my books, and we can do that this morning. Finding Rhonda is a story of a young man whose mother passes away and his dad remarries, and it's based in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and the surrounding area. And he ends up with a stepsister who is his same age. This book is based in the 1970s, or it begins in the 1970s. Well, some things happen, and they promised to watch after each other and take care of each other. They were a term that we use now as turnkey kids, but we didn't know that term back then. They were just they had to stay at home and take care of themselves while mom and dad went to college and worked on their careers. Well, when they turned 18, some things happen, and he is forced to either join the military or go to jail. And he has to leave his beloved stepsister and behind. They try to keep in contact with each other, but her life goes to hell in a handbasket, as my mama used to say. And as he begins to serve a career in the military, and the book goes from there to him retiring from the military and setting out on a quest to find his stepsister. The last he had heard about her, it was not good. Lots of things, bad things that happened in her life. But he sets out on a quest, and with the thought in mind, and even makes the statement that he's going to bring her home, even if it's in a box. And that is the quest for him to go until he can find his stepsister. And that's the story, Finding Rhonda. It is a powerful, powerful testimony of how God can move in people's lives. It's also a powerful story of love and affection. And it is one of those books that will have you sit down, and once you start reading it, you will want to finish it. It's not a very large book. Let's see, do I have a copy? I don't have a copy of it right here with me. It's a thin book. It's only a couple hundred pages. It can be read in one sitting, and you probably will. But it will. You better have your Kleenex with you when you read it, because it is a powerfully emotional book of friends and family. Let's see. Let me kick back over here. Might as well just spend the time today telling about this. Of Friends and Family, and that's the novel that's right above the paper on the screen right now. It is a book about a young man who, as a teenager, gets saved and enters the ministry and begins to minister and do Sunday school work and youth work and all this. But something happens his senior year of high school, and he ends up walking away from the church and away from God, seeking instead fame and fortune. And years later, as a very successful businessman, he has a chance encounter with a beloved minister who brings him back into the fold. And the Lord gets hold of him and his life, and he walks away from his very lucrative career to enter the ministry, much to the chagrin of his socialite wife and adult, spoiled, rotten socialite children. And that's when things get interesting, because on a trip back home, he runs into a friend who was his best friend in high school. And, well, you'll just have to read the story. It is also a powerful story of God's grace and God's power, and I'll be honest with you, all of my novels, there is a lot of real life in them. Okay, I'm not going to say that it's biographical in any shape, manner, or form, but because they are fiction, but there's real life in them. These are lifestyle novels, and the things that happen, and people make decisions, and they have to live with the consequences of those decisions. And sometimes the Lord will straighten those things out, but getting those problems resolved sometimes is a real challenge within itself. It is a powerful, powerful book. And it is a large book. It is a very large book. But also, you'll need to have your box of Kleenex handy for it. The latest novel that I published was Ashes in the Rose Garden. It's the one on the left. And I began writing a novel based in 1969. And it's a story it's in it, and that is an upcoming novel. But one of the characters in that novel became so much a part of it that everything revolved around him as much as it did the other main character. So, and his name was Uncle John Fletcher. So I stopped writing the 1969 novel, and I went back to 1918 and began to tell the story of Uncle John. And it goes all the way from the story begins with him being in World War I and receiving a Dear John letter from his fiancee. Her family had convinced her that he wasn't a good man. He was he didn't have anything, and that she ought to marry this older man who had was shall we say financially well off, a much better man for her to marry. She ends up breaking up with John, sending him a Dear John letter, and marrying Ben. Well, the story goes from there, and he comes back bitter and angry, and in his bitterness and anger, makes a lot of mistakes. He marries a woman, they have a child, and then he almost loses everything because he can't seem to let go of the past. But it is a story that goes from that bitterness and anger to absolute love that is so deep that it's heart-wrenching. And I will tell you, there's excitement in it. There's adultery. There is murder. There is mayhem. There's a bank robbery. It goes all the way through the Depression and up through World War II. And it is a story of God's salvation in someone's life if they will let it. Again, another powerful, powerful story. And then is the next one, which is the one I'm finishing up right now, which is called War Brides. And it picks up the story at World War II, and it picks up the story of two different women. One of them a character from Ashes in the Rose Garden, and one of them a new character to the series, and about how their lives are affected by falling in love with someone who is a soldier. Boy, it's proving to be another highly emotional book. You can have all four of my books, including Preparing to Make War, and my three novels of Friends and Family, Finding Rhonda, and Ashes in the Rose Garden, for a total of $60, $50 plus $10 shipping and handling. I can ship all four books for $10 and $50 for the books. That's $60. Send your request with your check or money order to Rick Tallent, P.O. Box 223, LaFayette, Georgia 30728, and I will get those out to you just as fast as I get your order. We do have them in stock. These are not a print-on-demand type thing where you have to wait on us to print them. We have them in stock, and they're powerful books. And let me just go ahead and share today the reasons why I write novels. I wrote Preparing to Make War in 1994 and published it in 1994. And it was a job. It was a challenge. It was a work of love, writing that book. But it's nonfiction. It is not a fiction book. It is nonfiction. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a storyteller. I love to tell stories. I always intersperse my sermons with stories and from real life, and have always enjoyed it. As a child, I loved to listen to the old timers tell stories of how they grew up, and the stories about their childhood, and stories about their war years and their military service, and listen to ministers tell the stories about the churches they pastored and some of the things that they've had happen. And all of that is just buried right in here, and well, there's just a whole lot of information that I can use to build characters in a fictional setting. So starting with Ashes in the Rose Garden, the first two novels of Friends and Family and Finding Rhonda are both based in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Rossville, Georgia, Lafayette, Georgia area. Just in this community, this area where I live currently. With sometimes with episodes in other parts of the country. But starting with Ashes in the Rose Garden, I created a fictional North Georgia community called Carson City in Carson County, fictional Carson County, Georgia. And that is the basis for the base where all of these stories take place. And family feuds, how those family feuds get started, and the effect that they have not only on the families, but also on their children and on generations and on the community. And some of the things that people do, and I'm telling you, yes, the books are a product of my imagination, but they read like the newspaper headlines. And if you've ever wondered how Christians can make it through all of the things that happen, and sometimes things that happen inside the church, and not become bitter, you'll see it. You'll see how it happens in these. You also see how God can turn people's lives around. These are not your typical, I even hate to call them Christian novels, but they are. They're not your typical Christian novels where, you know, the people, the main characters act like they walk around in prayer all day, and they just so soft-spoken, and everything is always right, and they never make a bad decision, and they always pray everything through ahead of time, never make rash decisions, never make mistakes. Folks, we all know that is that's maybe one person out of a million. The rest of us are real people, okay? We fall on our face. We make bad decisions. We fall on our face. We have to repent. We have to try to straighten out the mess and let the Lord straighten out what we can. And that's real life. And that's what these stories tell, is real life. But in telling those stories, I'm telling how the Lord can do it. And do it in such a way that the books are not preachy. Non-Christians will love these books just as well as Christians will. But through these novels, they will hear the gospel message. Not preachy, but they'll see the gospel message. And Regina, thank you. Yeah. Oh, I hope you do order all 4 of the books. I know $60 is a lot of money, but still, you know what? That's not as much as you pay a month for cable TV. And these books will certainly give you some entertainment and some information and study. And what I've heard from readers is, number 1, the storylines are powerful. And number 2, the characters are so real to life that when you get through reading the books, you feel like these are people that you know, and you want to read more. And that's the reason why, starting with Ashes in the Rose Garden, they have become a series. It is, I love it. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy writing them. My wife is one of my proofreaders. My sister Audrey is another of my proofreaders, and they've cried their way through every one of these novels, and have encouraged me to continue to write. And that's what I'm doing. I love teaching the Word of God. I love preaching the Word of God, but I really love writing, and I'm really enjoying writing these novels. And the stories they're told. And in fact, this is not the one I'm currently working on. This is actually a story that is upcoming, and this is just a small portion of it. It's one of the stories that's upcoming, and is actually the story of the son of one of the characters in War Brides. Okay, so I've already, and there's 2 more past this that I've already written. And I will tell you, these are also love stories, but they're stories that guys will like just as much as women. And so I'm writing them as I go. And no, there's not a big outline. I don't have a big outline like this for these books. I begin with the first chapter. The first chapter probably reads more like a short story, and then from there, I kind of know where the story is going to end, or where it's going to go, and from there, just begin to write the story. Just begin to tell the story. And seriously, I don't do it from an outline. These are stories that I've surprised myself a few times with sat down to to write, and the next episode that happens is something that I had never even thought of happening in the story, but it fits in with the story so well. So if you'd like all 4 of my books, I'll put it up here again. All 4 of my books, my nonfiction book, the book on spiritual warfare, Preparing to Make War, and my 3 novels of Friends and Family, Finding Rhonda, and Ashes in the Rose Garden. All 4 books, shipping and the book, $60. You can send your check or money order to Rick Tallent, P.O. Box 223, Lafayette, Georgia, 30728. And as soon as I get your order, I will get it back in the mail to you. Please allow 2 weeks because sometimes the mail is a little bit slow, but we'll get them out to you. And Regina, I hope you do order all 4 books because I know they will be a blessing to you and you will enjoy. And here's another thing too. Books make a great gift. A lot of people like to give gift cards. And I've got a couple of Amazon gift cards here on my desk that have been given to me as gifts. And matter of fact, I think here's 3 of them. But a book is, especially a book that you like, that you've read, that you enjoy. A book as a gift can be a personal thing, yet at the same time impersonal. I love books. If I could turn the camera around and show you, there's probably, well, you see on Sunday the number of books that are in the shelves there. There's boxes of books at the church. But I have 5, 6, 7 bookcases in my office here. And they're all loaded down with books. And I love to read. I love to study. And I love to write. And books have been a part of my life since the beginning. My sister taught me how to read before I ever started school. And my first piece of identification was a library card. So I can blame my sister Audrey for corrupting me with books. But I'm probably a bookaholic. I have a tendency to go to the resale stores, the thrift stores, and show up with 2 or 3 books when I exit the building. And we have a store here in the Southeast that's called McKay's. It's where you can not only sell your books, but and your music and video games, but it's like a huge library. The one in Chattanooga is probably 10,000 square feet. No, it's bigger than that. It's huge. It's huge. It's in a building that used to be a gymnasium, if that tells you anything. And what was the running track upstairs is all the music. So anyway, huge, but tens of thousands of books, and all of them at discount prices because they're used. But I have to have an escort when I go there. And my buddy Larry Gibson, who loves music probably more than I do, which is hard to believe, he, like me, is not allowed to go to McKay's without an escort. And yes, we get in trouble. My sister Audrey just posted, we get in trouble when we go to McKay's. And yeah, she did create a monster. Yeah. But books and reading, the thing about a book, you don't have to have electronics. You can take a book, and I'll just use the Bible as an example here because that's what I've got handy. You can take a book and you can stick it in your briefcase. You can take it with you. If you're sitting on an airplane, you can read. Sitting on a bus, you can read. Sitting at a picnic table, you can read. And reading, there was an old advertisement years ago saying that reading is fundamental with the FUN capitalized. And I believe that is true. I believe if you teach someone to love to read and then teach them to love books, that you've given them the world. Because the world is at their fingertips. There's a lot of in writing my novels, I probably do as much studying for writing a novel as what many people do for writing a nonfiction book. Because I try to make sure that as best I can to have these books historically correct. If there's historic times that they're in. And I believe that by doing so, by taking that extra effort and studying, and Regina, we're going to be praying for your daughter. I believe that by taking that extra time to study the history of the time frame, if a novel is based upon a particular time frame, that it adds reality to a book. It adds reality to the story. But I want to encourage you. Like I said, because of the cost of publications, everything has gone up in price, and the cost of printing books is going up horrendously. I am going to have to increase the price on books later this year, and I'm trying to put it off as long as I can. But it's not going to be long before I have to raise the price of books, because the ones that I have in stock, when I go back to have them reprinted, I've already been told there's going to be a substantial increase in the cost. So I have to pass that cost along to the purchasers, just like any other business, because I do have to cover the cost of printing and advertising and promoting my books, and hopefully make a little money along the way for all the hours and hours and hours and days and days and days that I have involved in these books. But I just want to share with you that, and I want to end the program today by saying this. When you pray, remember the prayer request that we mentioned here. Regina just put up that she had her daughter was on the phone, and she posted this publicly, so I'll share it. And her daughter needs food and hasn't had her meds in 2 days. Okay, pray for Regina's daughter, because we don't know what the circumstances are, but we know that God knows the circumstances, and he knows how to change those circumstances. And we all know that without Jesus, it doesn't matter what's going on. The answer cannot come except Jesus be the one to bring the answer, because that's how the permanent answer comes. That's how the problems get fixed, is when Jesus gets on the scene. And so that's the reason why my books are written the way they are. That's the reason why I preach the gospel, is because this way I can share the answer, because the answer to the question, regardless of the question, is Jesus. Until next time, this is Rick Tallent saying, go with God, because he has already gone before you and prepared the way. He is your rear guard. And no matter what happens in your life, no matter what happens, he will always be right there by your side.